Right, okay.
Okay. Well, comrades, I was asked to do two things. One, assess the general election and where we are now. And secondly, how this impacts upon our campaign, if it does at all. So in terms of the general election, but while there were mixed results, in many ways, my assessment is that it probably was as good as it could have been in the circumstances. And in many ways, there were a number of positives. Now, the first positive was the fact that the Tories were smashed. They were obliterated. And let me make my position quite clear, because I've been in various meetings where this has actually been challenged. But that is a very, very good thing. What it does, it takes the Tories out of the equation, and in building a new movement, a new movement of resistance, it means that it is just the movement, the Labour movement, against a Labour government without any intermediary of the Tories or Labour purporting to be in opposition. Now, that is a good thing, in my opinion. I say that without any equivocation. It's taken the Tories out of the equation. Secondly, where there were independents standing, I think that the results were actually better than I thought they would be. I know there were those such as Crispin and not the Andrew Marr show, that had unrealistic hopes. But actually the campaign and the vote for Jeremy Corbyn to begin with was astounding. I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful victory. And secondly, the victory of the 4 independents was also that, and there were a number of very near misses. Now, I don't know much about these independents. I heard speak at one of these meetings I've been on, the independent from Batley and Dewsbury. He seemed remarkably good. Ditto the comrade, I think, from Leicester South. I think there must be some question marks about the independent from Blackburn, given the fact that he appeared to be put up to stand against Craig Murray. So I am told. But nonetheless, let's see. And I thought that those votes were better than they could have been. But there are a couple of caveats. Now, whether this is a good or a bad thing, the fact is that Labour won a massive parliamentary majority, but on a very fragile base. In fact, its actual vote was less than the so-called disaster of 2019 and far below 2017. Its share of the vote was only marginally better than 2019 and nowhere near as good as 2017. Just more of a threat, in my opinion, was the vote for Reform UK. They only got 5 seats. I think we said 4. It was said 4 before, but it was 5. And they got 4 million votes. Now, of course, it's a mixed bag, this Reform UK vote. Many just kind of voting for a kind of gut feeling of anger, of being left behind, being victims, as they are, of the neoliberal economy. But nonetheless, there were some there who are very right-wing, racist. And what we are seeing is now that with Farage and his mates in Parliament, they have a standard bearer. Now, let me say what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that Farage is a fascist, any more actually than I would say Trump is a fascist. But they link to the fascists, could give them legitimacy. And I think that is quite a serious problem for us. Now, since the UK elections, we saw the French elections, a relief all round, whatever our views on various of the parts of the Popular Front. It was a relief, and it was a result of years and years of organising, which brings me to the main point I will make. And again, I may well be in a minority in this meeting, that talks of alternative parties are vastly premature. Not yet. What we should be talking about is the building of a movement of resistance and a network to connect the various groups. Now, I've been told by a number of groups, or asked by a number of groups, to join them. I was asked by Tony Greenstein about a year ago to join the SLN, the only game in town, I was told. I've been asked to join the Workers' Party, and that's not where we are at. We should be building a network of comrades from their different identities, uniting on the issues on which we agree, and making the basis of agreement as sharp as is necessary. I say that because when I'm asked about joining the Workers' Party, I have apart from the fact that's not what is needed at the moment, its actual leader, its kind of political representative, George Galloway, has some truly appalling views on asylum and immigration, on women's rights, on gay and lesbian rights. And it was he who supported Farage's party last year or the year before in local elections. So if our future depends on the left coalescing behind Galloway, it just ain't going to happen, nor should it. Apparently, which is good, he said, well, he wants Jeremy to lead the movement. In fact, he has said that quite a few times. Now, Jeremy is a good comrade and leader in many ways. And if he did become a figurehead of the movement, it would give it a reasonable chance of getting off the ground. But we're nowhere near a new party, because my view is that the centre of the struggle is not in the electoral arena. Crispin said last Sunday, the election results were okay-ish, but now we've got to build to do better next time. That's exactly not the focus, in my opinion. It's the centre of struggle is not the electoral arena, nor the parliamentary arena, and nor primarily in the Labour Party. Our task is to build a grassroots movement to unite the struggles. Jeremy said at the demonstration last Sunday that those who came out canvassing for him, the thousands that came canvassing for him and the other independents, were the kernel of a grassroots political movement. He may even be overstating that. Let's say it's the embryo of it. In my opinion, the only way we are going to build a movement against what is probably going to be a resurgent right is to build a movement on the streets, in our workplaces, and in the various campaigns. Because of this government is not coming to office in a period like Blair did, in a period of relative class calm, stability, and in a period where he could afford certain concessions. The honeymoon, I very much doubt, will last very long, may already be over. And I think that we are going to see attacks on our movement and attacks on our human rights and freedoms. And that ain't going to be fought primarily by our few parliamentary representatives, though their role will be to give a voice to the voices of resistance. Now, let me make a few things clear. The network we have to build has to include centrally the trade unions, and it has to include members of the Labour Party. Now, probably most people here gave up on the Labour Party. I understand why, although the qualitative break that is probably going to happen with the Labour Party hasn't yet happened. That is the break with the trade unions. I can well imagine during this Parliament that may well happen, but it hasn't yet. There are still a number of good socialists in the Labour Party. There are a few good socialists in the Parliamentary Labour Party, and those more doubtful we should be putting on the spot. So look, in a nutshell, it's the best of times and the worst of times. And I will stop there in terms of my assessment of the election. How does this impact on our campaign, basically to make Sharon Graham be part of the, and her leadership be part of the campaign for Palestine, for ceasefire, for BDS and the like? I've struggled on this one. I'm not sure it does have much impact, except possibly this. Possibly we've already, in the election campaign, we already saw the beginnings of a break from Sharon Graham towards the Labour Party leadership, to whom at some point she seemed to be cuddling up. She couldn't accept their programme, their manifesto commitment on workplace rights. And it may be that post-election, with no pressure to toe the line, she may be more free. But the question is, free to do what? Because I'm not just sure it was a tactical consideration that has stopped her. It may, I don't know, and perhaps other comrades can tell me, it may be that either she's actually is non-political, just mainly a syndicalist, and must say a very good one at that, or that she's actually just doesn't understand Israel, Palestine at all. I don't know. So I'm going to leave it there, comrades. I think I'm very sorry. I will have to leave in about 30 odd 40 minutes. And that's not just for the football, by the way. So I'll leave it there and happy to answer questions, and with probably a number of comrades who will be disagreeing with my analysis. Thank you. Well, firstly, comrades, I will apologise that immediately after I've spoken, I will have to go, and I'm very sorry.
Sure.
But I'm really pleased that I was able to come to this part. Now, let me deal with the comrades, not in chronological order of the way when they spoke. Tony's points. Tony, I think you're exaggerating the differences between us on these issues. I think it was you that says the Labour Party is dead. Well, of course it isn't. It's not, or if it's not dead enough, because the crucial thing about the Labour Party is it remains an obstacle. It's a material obstacle to us building a real left. So it's no point in saying it's dead. It's alive enough to prevent us. There's an objective reason. It's not just that this generation of socialists and revolutionaries are not up to it. I've always said that if Lenin and Trotsky lived in our period, they wouldn't have been much more successful than we've been, because it's different objective conditions, and the existence of the Labour Party is part of that. Now, I'm not for excluding George Galloway from any left network. I've never said it. It's actually wrong in principle. In fact, I've said the opposite. I have profound disagreements with him, but we need our network movement to have a sharp programme that it will actually exclude, or it will actually be self-exclusion. If you've got a very firm position on asylum rights, on immigration, and George signs up to it, well, he's signed up to something which he doesn't carry out, and we can use that. So I'm against, look, I can't stand that creep Owen Jones, right? But I do not think he should be excluded. So no exclusions. I do agree also, by the way, that our purpose isn't to change Sharon Graham's mind. It's to build a movement within our union, a movement of opposition. And that's what our role is, not to get wretched Sharon Graham to change her mind. That would be it may be that if we built such a movement, it might help her think again. Now, just on the various issues, Amina, saw some reference in the chat to something that happened outside the town hall in Lewisham from you, and good, because I've now moved to Catford, so you may well be a a local comrade of mine.
Fantastic.
Perhaps we can get each other's details via Gary or something. Now, and I liked your ideas of local action in the trade unions and beyond to get pressure on local authorities to disinvest from Israel. And your point about the anti-war movement again is key. But just I don't want to get into a digression on Ukraine because, you know, there's 18 of us here, there'll be 25 opinions probably. However, I don't accept that part of the left that supports Putin and his attacks on communities, hospitals, schools in the Ukraine any more than I do Israel. So Tony talks about the hypocrisy of the press. It's important we don't mirror that with our own hypocrisy. I'm also against arms to NATO. So there's a contradiction. I'm against NATO expansion rather to the east. Of course I am. We're anti-war. And of course there's tensions and contradictions, but those tensions and contradictions are in the real world and not in our heads. It's a profound problem, Ukraine, but I am very happy to follow the lead of Stop the War on that. They've got it about right, in my opinion. Now, on the future of struggle, which Adrian asked, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I think there will be attacks on the working class. I think there will be attacks on our human rights. And I think there's a movement that is finding its strength. On the other hand, there's still a trade union bureaucracy, which to some extent can get away with doing as little as it can. I don't know the answer. Can we monitor that, please? I agree with what Gary said about the Greens. I'm often attacked in our meetings of the JVL executive, where I'm always criticised for. I came out with a statement, that's what it was. I talked about the independents, but in terms of parties, I said there wasn't one left party that won a seat at the last election. And they said, what about the Greens? So we have a difference on that. Was it Steve, I think, again, the demo at Labour Party conference? The only thing, of course, would be the police may well take action to prevent it getting anywhere near conference, but we should be doing it. And I think us lot can't organise it, but I think we should be possibly putting some pressure on Stop the War, and perhaps they're already doing it. Now, finally, the last comrade said we should have started a new party years ago. Yeah, we should have done, but there's a reason we didn't. And it's not because we're not Lenin and Trotsky. It's because of the objective conditions meant that it wasn't possible. Believe me, there wouldn't have been a Bolshevik party if we had great revolutionaries. I mean, we've got tons around, all competing with each other. So when people say join our party, no, join my party, it's all a waste of time, that is. We've got to stay with our own identities and link up on the many questions on which we agree. So I'm accused sometimes, not at this meeting, thank you, of movementism, which means you're just interested in the movement, the broad movement. You don't concentrate on the party. Well, we do need an electoral strategy, but I'm not sure that we're not there yet. We're not at the position. We can declare parties. The Workers' Party's a party. And, you know, with a bit of, they had good votes, actually, and with a bit of good fortune or whatever, they could have got a couple of seats at the last election. A couple of seats do not a party make. And I think that a part of our struggle has to be trying. Now, an interesting point Tony raised. Do I support disaffiliation from Labour? At a certain point, I do. It's when there can be a number of unions acting somewhat in unison and agreeing in advance that having disaffiliated, they then try to create a new party of the trade unions of Labour. Because otherwise, we're going to end up in a syndicalist dead end. And in this union, I think we can see already the problems of syndicalism. So let me leave it here. This is a discussion which we should keep on having, comrades, because I've got a lot out of this because it's sort of helped me clarify things, and I hope it does other comrades as well.
Okay.